can tell you people they were the devil's children.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Nikki, Aurora, and from me. Aurora is going to try to get very affectionate if I don't dispense with her presence as quickly as possible. So, without further ado, I will plunge right in. MTPPQ says, Lady C, page 6 quotes Hugo Vickers saying that Meghan has the upper hand in the coronation stakes. Do you think that's accurate? Well, I'll tell you, Hugo's very well connected. I've said it before, and I'll repeat it again. And Hugo and I have had a very patchy history. So I would be perfectly delighted to criticize Hugo if he deserved it. But he doesn't deserve anything but credit. What he said was basically that to page 6, was that Meghan has been calling the shots in the PR war, and my understanding of what I read is that there are concerns that Meghan has the upper hand. Well, I'm going to clarify that by saying I'm going to add to it. I'm going to expand upon it, that Meghan does have the upper hand. Meghan is, according to several people who know her very well, several relations, not only of the royals, but of Meghan herself, is a brazen, cold-hearted, narcissistic, sociopathic liar who will brook nothing and allow nothing to stand in her way as she throws her weight around and flounces amongst everybody on the world stage. That she has the advantage, which unscrupulous people always do have initially, of lack of scruple. If you don't have any scruples, you can do anything. And Harry has already told us that Meghan is unscrupulous when he said she's capable of anything. And Hugo has touched upon something that everybody else has missed, but I'm going to enlarge upon it because nobody has figured out yet, although the evidence has been there all along. Meghan has created this whole situation in the last 2 or 3 weeks, not only as an antidote to South Park and the embarrassment of South Park. I've told you before, she's very resourceful, and people would love to dismiss her and say, oh, because things end up in a muddle, that she isn't bright. When you're trying to create havoc and chaos, things inevitably have to end up in a muddle. So you're being very effective at your chosen occupation. And she is being very effective at her chosen occupation. She is a past mistress at propaganda and the manipulation of the press and of people. She has a genius for it. It has to be said, so did Diana. So to that extent, Harry is right. his wife and his mother do have things in common. What she did was, and she's Meghan, and this is something that a royal told me very recently. They said, and I'm not going to even give the gender away, they said, have you noticed that she has no compunction about embarrassing herself if it is going to further her agenda? Because she is unembarrassable. She is shameless. And she knows that if she humiliates herself, she is doing it to, they actually said, dump loads on everybody else, is what they said. What she has done, and is very clever, you may not approve of it, but it is clever. She is the one who leaked, and I said it all along, it was obvious that she leaked it, but I have been told that she is the one who leaked this stuff about Frogmore. Or maybe I shouldn't say she, her people. When we say she, it might not be she herself, her people leaked it, obviously at her behest. That the leak emanated from Montecito. I've said that repeatedly, and I'm going to broaden it to actually not say her particularly, for legal reasons as well as anything else. She was happy to embarrass herself so that she could set up the situation, because she got whiff of the fact that the king was going to make Prince Edward the Duke of Edinburgh. And she thought, wow, this is an opportunity. Yeah, I can just score right back and end up riding high. I'll be able to muzzle South Park and everybody else. I mean, it's the last story is the only story that counts. So I'm going to suck a little salt, and I'm going to, at the same time, garner a little sympathy. I'm going to let everybody know that H and I have been rendered homeless. Aurora and Mickey, come and console Matty on Megsy Baby's behalf. Rendered homeless. Not a place to rest our head on a pillow in England. Harry's home country. Harry's domicile. Where we need IBB status from so that we can milk the American public of its public funds as they have to pay for our security. So, what does she do? She leaks the story, or her people leak the story, I should say. Sorry, to be scrupulously accurate. But you could also say she leaked it because ultimately they're responsible for what their people do. So anyway, either way, I'm just trying to nail things down fairly accurately. Because she knew that it gave her a window of opportunity to grab back positive headlines, or what she regards as positive headlines. She knew that between the gap of the South Park debacle followed by the Frogmore sensation, there would be a small window of opportunity. So what does she do? she makes sure that I nearly said wedding, that the christening not only takes place, but is announced, and it takes place as if it is a royal christening. Because normally, christenings are not done in private houses unless you have a chapel. I'm pretty damn sure that Castello Montecito de Poo does not have a chapel in it. I mean, our castle has a chapel in it. Many castles have chapels in them. But a phony baloney, faux Tuscan chateau, in quotes, because I think it's called the chateau, doesn't have a chapel. But what does she do? So yeah, there we have it. She then announces that the christening has taken place of Princess Lilibet Diana. Now, that, I am assured, is absolutely a total breach of any accepted protocol. Nobody announces their elevation or the elevation of their children. It is always done by the palace. But this was done by Meghan. And what does the palace then have a choice of doing? Either giving the racists the opportunity, because remember, into all of this is parachuted Ngozi Fulani with the bangarangs everywhere, trying to reintroduce the colour card yet again. I mean, aren't you just sick to death of this cynical and so cack-handed manipulation to which the public, that is you and I, have been subjected by this brazen hussy? Well, she succeeded. She not only managed to steal Prince Edward's thunder, but she managed to steal a march on titles for her children. Now, I have two adopted children, and I have nothing against the fact that children are your children, irrespective of whence they originated. I also have respect for decency, fair practice, and the law. Do I want to leave things there for the moment? I think so. No need to prevail further. Let's remember that those children are the innocents in all of this. But whether they are Master and Miss Innocent, or Lord and Lady Innocent, or Prince and Princess Innocent, they are innocent. But there's a hell of a difference between a lord and a lady, a master and a miss, sorry, and a prince and a princess. And I would respectfully submit that a child that is entitled to one title should not be bounced into another title because of the ambitions of its parents. Understandable. those ambitions would be. Because, I mean, all titled people would like to have their children be titled as well. I can't think of anybody who wouldn't. And in fact, as I've said before, the Marchioness of Aberdeen went to great lengths to make sure that the Queen elevated her 4 adopted children from Mr. and Miss to Lord and Lady, and thereby elevated all adopted children in this country so that they are now entitled to use courtesy titles. However, they are not entitled to peerages. I leave the matter there. But before actually leaving it there, I'm going to pick up on something else that has occurred to me. Meghan is now talking about relaunching the Tig. Well, good luck to her. She thinks it's going to be as big as the Goop. Well, I don't know who a Goop is, but I know who a dupe is, and I know who a dupe isn't. And I think Meghan has a kiss of death. I cannot see her succeeding to the extent that Gwyneth Paltrow has. But you never know. The world is full of stupid people with too much money and not enough sense. But will she be able to BS her way, the way Gwyneth Paltrow has BS'd her way into parting a fool and his or her money very quickly, the way Gwyneth Paltrow has been able to do it? I'm not so sure. Gwyneth Paltrow has never been somebody that people loathed and reviled. Gwyneth Paltrow was a genuine movie star when she started the Goop. Meghan has never been a genuine movie star. Meghan is a star only of the tabloids and the media. And she is a reviled creature at the same time. Gwyneth Paltrow has never been reviled. Do people really want to associate themselves commercially and spend their good hard-earned money? Well, maybe the dupes, maybe the few people of colour that she thinks are her Sussex squad, who are too ignorant to know they're being used. And even their numbers are being questioned, because it seems to be that most of Meghan's followers have been bought in and are bots. They're knots, in other words. They're not followers. They are the knot of a follower. So, she is very adept at creating conflict. How good a commercial enterprise is that in terms of having people purchase your work? I mean, Harry's book, although it's still on the bestsellers list, is hanging on by the skin of its teeth, and only because Penguin Random House, which I predicted it would, throw every penny that it had to create the impression of a success that does not exist. The reports from the bookshops all over the world are, the books are here today, they're here tomorrow, they're here the day after. Why don't the pals go down? Rather like the pals of books on Meghan's fabulous desk, The one that she and H share. Remember the pile of books of the stench? Well, she's great at creating conflict. She's great at getting herself mentioned. But do people want to spend their good hard-earned money on something that such a disaffected being as Meghan Markle and such a disaffecting being as Meghan Markle truly is? I don't think so. All this talk of all the money that they're supposed to have made, I've told you all along, my information has been, it is wildly exaggerated. You know, it's a typical BS thing of, if I pump up things enough, people are going to believe it. But she said it. She said it. On the TIG, she said it. How many people are going to go along with the TIG? I would imagine that could be quite successful. Because she is clever. I should think that's where she'll make some money. But giving Gwyneth Paltrow a run for her money, I don't think so. I think she's a small-time hustler in a big boys' game. And the more this goes on, is the more apparent it becomes the woman is a small-time hustler. And so undignified. And so pretentious. And quite frankly, so distasteful. Sandra Schmidt says, Dear Lady C, if Harry attends the coronation, could the United States government prohibit him from returning to the USA due to his self-proclaimed drug use? Yes, it could. And there are people hoping that it will. I personally would like them to show that the law applies to everybody, including a boastful constitutional threat, because Harry is a threat to the American Constitution. He wants to erode the First Amendment. He is busy involving himself in matters that directly affect the well-being and the civil liberties of American citizens all and residents all over your country. Those of you who are American, I'm now speaking to directly. Personally, I think some clever politician ought to do something about it. And is the State Department going to do it? Is the Home, whatever it's called, Homeland, whatever, or the Immigration and Naturalization Department, are they going to do it? I wouldn't bank on it. Not with what goes on in the American government and goes on in the world at large. I think had President Trump been in power, it would have been slightly more likely to have happened, but not greatly more likely. But with Biden and Kamala Harris in power, they don't want to rock the people of color vote. They will sell you down the river, but they're not going to sell their votes down the river. And let's not forget, Meghan is an American princess of colour. Talk about beating a dead horse. MTM, at several numbers, says, Lady C, Lilibet is nearly 2 years old. She should have been christened ages ago. This has nothing to do with Christianity. This event was probably thrown together as a strategic deflection to Southport and their plummeting popularity. I agree with that, and I've actually covered it already. Certainly the announcement was generated as a result of South Park. So why wait 2 years? Why do it then? Why keep people dangling? Why? Because we've got to remain in the news. You know, new week, new times, new news. We've got to let everybody know that we exist. It's a new week. It's a new story. It's so brazen and cynical, it makes you want to be sick. But my hope is that people get sick of them to the extent which we're not at yet. We are at the disgusted, puking stage of sick of them. But there will come a point, I hope, when this story will become so distasteful that people are just going to shut down and say, I don't want to hear another word. And they're not going to say it. It's just going to happen quite naturally. Keep It Real says, Lady C, other channels are saying that the Queen's letters patent to make all of William's children HRH Prince and Princess means the 1917 one is null and void. But I thought that the 1917 letters patent does still apply, except for the changes the Queen made by doing her own letters patent. Could you please clear this up? Gladly. The Queen refined King George V's letters patent. She could make an amendment. She made an amendment. She did not overturn the whole thing. She simply added one dimension to it. So I hope that clarifies that, because the letters patent are actually a very interesting topic, and there are other questions on it which address other issues and aspects to it, which I will go into by reading out the comments. CS says, I hope this message finds you feeling better. Not really. Please take care of yourself. I'm trying. Thank you. I have been curious about the letters patent by George V. There is mention of the eldest son, etc. If Princess Charlotte was born first, would she have been Princess of Wales in the fullness of time? By the late Queen making it so that a female keeps her place in the line of succession, does that mean that the entire George V letters patent should have an update to reflect the eldest child rather than the eldest son? Thank you very much for considering my questions. Much love to you and the fur babies. Thank you. Woof woof, I'm sure they'd say. Aurora has her hand very snug in her face very snug in my hand, enjoying a cuddle. You've touched upon a very interesting point, because the rules of succession were changed so that it's no longer male line primogeniture that counts. and the letters patent of 1917 do refer only to the male heir to the Prince of Wales's heir. So that's certainly something that will need to be updated at some point. The family was able to get away with not touching it because George was the firstborn. But there's also a movement in this country to update all hereditary titles so that male line primogeniture ceases to be the overriding factor it has been for many, many centuries. Now, insofar as Princess Charlotte, being Princess of Wales, had she been the firstborn? Well, no, because there have been other female heirs to the throne, none of whom was ever created Princess of Wales. There was Princess Mary, Henry VIII's elder daughter, There was Princess Elizabeth, his only legitimate daughter at the time of her birth, because he had delegitimized Mary. Each of them could have been made Princess of Wales, but wasn't. You could say there was hope that a male would come along, which he did. So that rendered that whole scenario obsolete. Then you had Princess Mary Markle, the Princess of Orange, who became Queen Mary II and who was King James II's elder daughter. She was never made Princess of Wales because her father hoped to have a Prince of Wales, which he did. Then there was her younger sister, Princess Anne, who could also have been made Princess of Wales, but never was for the same reason. Then you have Queen Victoria, another heir to the throne, but then the only heir to the throne who was in the position that she could be made Princess of Wales. And she was not made Princess of Wales because the title was created for the eldest son. Now, I suspect down the line that will change, but at the moment it's not changing. And I think there's no need for it to change, but it certainly would be a populistic move. Not so sure I'd use the word popular, although it might be popular, but it would be populistic. Sorry. Saucy Wench says, as an American citizen, I have contacted my senator in Congress asking for clarification on Harry's wife's citizenship status, re her acceptance and usage of a foreign title in the USA. It is my understanding that such acts would forfeit US citizenship. If my understanding is correct, then it should be clarified through the federal government. Saucy Wench, you're looking in the right direction. This is an American issue. It's nothing to do with us. You need to clean up that mess. You'll clean it up for yourselves and you'll clean it up for us. We cannot interfere in the rights of your citizens to have privileges or not. So, I would never discourage people from using the activism that the Meghans of this world use to show them that when you cram people's feet into shoes that don't fit, their corns are going to burn. What's good for the goose can and should be good for the gander. Joe DPS says, Dear Lady C, I'm wishing you a swift recovery. Thank you. I hope the pace will speed up, because I'm now on some medicine that will hopefully speed it up, because it's been pretty dreadful actually between you and me. I have to ask, when will Meghan not be able to use the race card? She will always use the race card and always get away with it, whether the race card applies or not. Meghan is holding the royal family and the entire world hostage with her false race card, and I am livid that she continues to get away with her vile antics. Please tell us as third parties how we can help end this vile woman's despicable treatment of millions. Thank you. Love to you and your adorable fur babies. Thank you. Well, I love your sentiments. I couldn't agree more. That something needs to be done. She is, I have many connections into the political scene of colour. Some of my closest friends are fully paid up members of the Jamaican nomenclatura who are black. And when I say black, I mean black. I don't mean Meghan have to bronze up black. I mean properly black. And they are outraged. People all over the world are outraged by the abuse to which this woman has put the tiny little bit of black blood that she has been able to milk to her advantage. But you notice, she still doesn't get the browning up properly done. The face is brown, the neck and the arms and the feet and the legs are white. How does that work? What can we do? We, the public? This is where Meghan is going to be stopped by a groundswell of disapproval from the public. You will need to figure out what you can do. I would say at this point, I would invite suggestions from people as to what they think can be done. I would say one of the things that could definitely be done is if people of colour all over the world start to have solidarity for what is right and what they know is right, and to disapprove of what is wrong. Because too many people say to me, oh, Meghan is a disgrace. Sorry. I think, she should be stopped. But they don't want to put their neck on the line. I understand it. But there will come a point when the pendulum will have swung so far against this abuse of colour and this actual racism of the most grossly distasteful kind, because she is not only using race against people of color, she's also using it against white people. I have to say, I have come to the conclusion that Meghan Markle is truly one of the most dangerous public figures on the world stage at the moment. And yes, I agree, she needs to be stopped. But it's not going to be easy for white people alone to stop her. People of colour, and I have to say, if you read these comments, you know that in the tens of thousands, people of colour have disapproved of what Meghan's behaviour represents and the damage she is doing to their interests. Well, everything takes time to coalesce, but I think eventually things will. But what can be done? I would love to hear your opinions as to what you think could be done. B33 says, hello, Lady C. I'm so very glad that you haven't coughed once. Huh. That ruins your comment, doesn't it? Sorry. I hope that means you are feeling a lot better. Sadly, it doesn't. I heard on a different channel earlier today that Harry and Meghan had most of their money in Silicon Valley Bank, possibly their business money, which has gone under. What have you heard? Any truth to this? P.S. You just coughed. With much adoration from Florida. Thank you. Well, I have to say, I heard that as well. And Meghan and Harry don't have any caravan, no matter how rackety, passing, that they don't jump on the bandwagon and say, oh, 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 look at me, look at me, I'm here. Oh, and sorry, Meghan's now. I'm so modest. I'm so modest. I'm so, I'm very demure. I'm Julia Roberts. Yes, I am. Oh, and sorry, should I be having another miscarriage? Well, let me think about that. Let's see how it plays. Later down the line, maybe I'll need it for some other opportunity. So, whether they had their money in the bank or not is immaterial, because evidently the whole matter has been turned around and everybody's savings are going to, or deposits, I should say, are supposed to be protected, not just up to $250,000, but beyond. Who knows? Let's see. Quite frankly, I wouldn't care less whether they were wiped out or not. I really wouldn't care less. I honestly have lost virtually all sympathy for them. The latest antics with leaking about Frogmore to silence South Park and return my victim status, please. Aurora, your mommy says that you're a really good doggy, and she says that if you will please go and fetch. Look, Aurora, there's a flying pig up there. It's got my name on it. Look, Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex. And if you will please get a nice flying pig that says, I'm a victim, my victim status has been returned. And then, not only am I a victim, and I'm so delicate that when I'm not crying on the floor, I'm disconsolate. I'm just on the floor in bits and pieces. I'm the proud, confident woman of colour that knows how to fight in a way that no other woman has ever known how to fight. I make tungsten look like velvet. And so I now have a photo op with backgrid. And unfortunately, I was dumb enough to wear a pair of dark glasses, which gave the game away. It wasn't a whole host of paparazzi. It was one dinky little paparazzo from backgrid, whose presence was reflected from my glasses into you, the world at large. But you're all dumb. You don't need to be, you're all dumb. And as for that woman who's pretending to be me, she's even dumber. Because do I care whether you all think it's a setup or not? What do I care about? All I care is that it's happened. And I got the column inches. And yeah, I am ruthless. And I don't give a flying monkeys. And if you don't like it, you're just going to have to lump it. Because that stupid father-in-law of mine, the pathetic one, he's right. I'm tungsten. Chris CBMHXY. Hi, Lady C. Hello. Kinsey Schofield, Royal Insider in Los Angeles, spoke on Sunrise Hair, in Australia 2 weeks ago. And she said that Meghan had been seen meeting with prominent politicians and very financial people. The conversations are not known. However, do you think Harry, in his purple haze, does not know the scale and scope of her wheeling and dealing? It seems like she is doing a lot of things without Harry being involved. I can't help but feel she has handlers that maybe Harry knows nothing about. Well connected, I would say, because she has journalists afraid to speak. If they say too much to have to protect their careers, with pairs, Sharon Osbourne and Jeremy Clarkson examples glaring them in their faces. Now, Meghan is good, but it takes big money and power to have that sort of clout. And truly, do you think Meghan has that clout? I can't help but think someone or something is helping her. She is a chaos agent. I always say follow the money. And they are hemorrhaging money for sure. And I don't think they are making the sort of money you would need to achieve all what they are doing. And it seems like keep everyone confused with lies and fake stories to ensure that chaos. The target must be to totally damage the royal family. Because why would she want to destroy the goose that lays the golden eggs for her and her children? And for the most part, Harry is blissfully in his purple haze and reliving every hurt he has ever suffered or imagined he suffered. Couldn't agree more. Or predicts he might suffer. Well thought out. Sorry, it's so long. Glad to see you are a little better with your cold. Hugs to you and the ladies in fur coats. By the way, I call them that because I'm sure they do not know they are dogs. Love the way you love the ladies. This is a very interesting comment and very layered, and But I actually could do a whole program on this comment because it covers so much terrain. But since I'm not going to do a whole program on it, you have no idea, if you are a member of the public, how totally craven and cynical, and when it suits them, gullible journalists are. You have no idea. They follow agendas in this country. Now, I'm speaking primarily about the United Kingdom, but it applies in America as well, where the mainstream media are completely controlled to a large extent by the left wing, and over here to a large extent as well. So, and let's remember, this applies to Wikipedia as well, because one of the two founders of Wikipedia has cautioned people against trusting anything you read on Wikipedia because of left-wing bias. Now, I'm very centrist, believe it or not, and I have nothing against left-wing views that I agree with. And I certainly don't like right-wing views that I don't agree with. Nor do I like left or right-wing propagandist tactics that pervert the purpose of the news and create opinions instead of actually purveying news. They're not purveying information, they're purveying propaganda. Does Meghan need to be very powerful, controlled by one or two great minds in the background? No. All she needs to be is a relatively clever hustler, which she is, with a total lack of apparent scruples. And again, we have Harry's word for that she has none. And as he said, Meghan is capable of anything. That tells us he, on some level, thrills to her lack of scruples. And she has a lot of support amongst the Dame Caroline McCalls of this world. She is the head of ITV, and she is so left that, I mean, it's the word gauche doesn't apply to her. That's how left she is. So Meghan phones up people like that and gets them to do her dirty deeds. And they think they are earning brownie points with their political affiliates. And Meghan has played the colour card very cleverly from the word go. She's also played the class card. She was a product of, to a degree, white privilege. White, unprivileged children don't go to the finest schools and universities in the United States of America. Right there, she was the product of white privilege. But since that wasn't going to play well with her political agenda, she lied about it. And she has had the mainstream press furthering her lies. And when they try not to do so, she has perjured herself, giving false evidence to a court. And when the court finds out that she's perjured herself and lied in her witness statements, what have they done? Oh, well, she's royal, so. That's where the harm came in. she was using the kudos of the royal family to undermine the whole royal system. My dear, my mother was as devious and manipulative and dangerous and vicious and, dare I say, evil as Meghan Markle's behaviour suggests to me that she is. I'm going to use one example. It's in my book, Daughter of Narcissus, but it gets it off Meghan Markle and shows you that you just have to be ordinarily intelligent and ordinarily well placed to be able to create havoc. Meghan is lucky that she was able to create this havoc pretending to be a left-wing supporter. But she's not a left-wing supporter. How can she be a left-wing supporter? She does nothing but flying private jets and mixes with multimillionaires and billionaires. I mean, how left-wing is that? When did she nominate her butler for Ascot into the royal enclosure? Did she ever do that? No. What about her mechanic? No. Well, excuse me, Meghan, if you're not a snob, why aren't you promoting worthy people and getting them to join your magical circle? Ha ha! Because she's nothing but a cheap and vulgar snob. And the word snob is a contraction of sine nobilitate, which means without nobility. And she is without nobility. But what did she do? She uses all of this to create these problems and gets away with it. But I'll go back to my mother. In 1976, I went to Jamaica for 6 weeks. And because it was boring and I had nothing better to do, I decided to raise money for the University Hospital of the West Indies Obstetrics and Gynecology Unit. So I organised a concert, which did very well. I struck a deal with the singer who needed the money. She was a girlfriend of my brother's, and he was considering marrying her. And she turned out to be such a poisonous bitch that when he asked me if I thought he should marry her, I said, well, why don't you do that, Mickey, and have her finish the job Mummy has started? Never heard another word about him marrying that creature. But anyway, I did not realise what a poisonous bitch she was at the time. I did, before I managed to leave Jamaica, discover that she was trying to break up my relationship with my brother. I mean, unbelievable. But anyway, she was an opera singer, and I organised this concert, and she was going to get the money from the gate. And this, since I was the chairman, I was organising it, it was my right to call the shots. And I would have got the money for the charity from the programme. The programme is where, in those days, you made most of the money. The gate made a nominal amount, but the programme made the vast quantity of the money. And of course, in those days, my father's generation were all alive and they were all in business. And Jamaica's structure had begun to wobble, but it hadn't entirely collapsed. So I went to all of the family friends and the cousins and got ads and made a substantial amount of money for the charity. And because my mother had dried out, and I thought, oh, well, I knew how vain she was. And I suggested to her that she be co-chairman. And she didn't have to do anything, just be co-chairman. And she said, oh, yes, like she was doing me a favor by accepting it. But I thought, oh, I'm not going to believe at the point. And the day of the concert, she came back from the bank and called me into her bedroom and said, I've just been to the bank and I'm missing my ruby bracelet. What have you done with it? Well, she knew that that would enrage me. She also knew it wasn't possible for me to go into her safety deposit box in her bank and get her ruby bracelet. And she knew that that would enrage me even more, which it did. I tore down the house for about 5 hours. I screamed abuse at her. And a friend of mine, Cookie Kincaid, who's a very well-known Jamaican photographer, done wonderful work with World of Interiors and all of those smart magazines over the decades. Cookie was there for the whole thing. She said, Georgia, I can't believe anybody has so much energy. Well, I was so enraged that every time I'd storm back up to the swimming pool to Cookie. And then when I had something new to say to Mummy, I'd storm back down onto the back veranda and rant and rave and storm back up again. And I exposed everything she'd ever done to and about everybody in front of everybody who was there. And Daddy said, because he realized this was just a setup, and he said to my brother Mickey, oh, I don't understand why Gloria's doing this. And nobody could figure it out. Well, I couldn't figure it out at the time. But when the time came for the apportionment of the funds to take place, I by then was back in England, and the honorary treasurer was Rudolph Green, who was the chief of staff of the army, who was a good family friend and a friend of Mummy's, as well as a friend of the family generally. But he was really Mummy's friend primarily. And Mummy instructed Rudolph to turn over the entire amount of money to the charity, because she wasn't having that nutty buddy, me, jeopardizing her good name by paying any singer for having sung. And as soon as I discovered how the money had been disposed, and Mummy had simply decided she was going to unpick the agreement, not because she expected that anybody would criticize what was a perfectly conventional and normal arrangement, but because she always had to prevail. She always had to come out on top. She always had to be the one calling the shots. And even though she had done nothing for the concert, except accept a position as an honorary chairman, co-chairman, I should say, she still managed to do it. And that's when and she wasn't drunk. She wasn't allowed to drink at that time. And I thought, this woman is pure poison. She will create any situation and tell any lie and orchestrate any scenario so that she will prevail. She is sick, and she was sick. Do you think you could have come up with a scenario like that to deprive somebody of the money she needed and to use your daughter and try to damage your daughter's reputation? Not that it did, because everybody knew it was utter rubbish. But she didn't mind doing it nevertheless, and damaging our relationship even further than when she'd, a few years before, burnt me on my face, or tried to burn me on my face. She didn't actually succeed. I mean, it takes a particular sort of sick form of intelligence to come up with scenarios like that. And no, it doesn't need to be some rich Mr. Dr. Blofeld or such in the background. It only takes an ambitious hustler who wants to prevail. And I hope that explains my position where this matter is concerned. And on that note, I will say thank you very much. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please remember, keep the questions and comments coming in. This cannot be done without you. Okay? Thank you so much. God bless. Goodbye. And if you have enjoyed it, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care.